Hi there, everybody. It's Steve. It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day for a walk, for a jaunt. I'm feeling good. How are you feeling? Hopefully you're feeling all right and we can just be collectively feeling fantastic together. So today, it is May 18th, 2021. Another day, another story. Oh, God, even with sunglasses on, you should not look towards the sun. I wasn't even trying. I was just like, look off this way. Nope, there's the sun, right? Okay, I better get off the street. I can't see anything. Anyway, before we get to today's story, remember as always to like, share, subscribe, hit up my Patreon. If you want to help me out that way, help me pay for my eye doctor bills I'm gonna need soon. The link to that is in the description with this video, as well as the links to my Instagram and Facebook pages closely related to the content I'm posting both on my This Day in History channel, as well as my Steve the Amateur Historian channel, because I'm posting these vlogs on both channels so you can watch them on either one. And all that said, let's get to today's story. This car just drove that way, stopped, turned so it's facing me after passing me, and then honked its horn very aggressively. Are you directing your hostilities at me? Don't do it. You don't want to know how I am when I get angry. Speaking of angry, a Portland police officer back in 1921 learned a thing or two about what happens when you make a certain something angry. So that was a good lead-in. Thank you. I mean, if that was directed towards me, I don't know if it was. Anyway, a week ago, May 11th, I addressed a story about a Portland police officer who, it was discovered, was actually a federal criminal on the run. Here we are a week later, and I'm back with another story involving a Portland police officer, except this one is not so much about crime, the criminal element. This one's more just kooky. So I'm assuming, and if you haven't, well, what I'm about to say, well, you just won't get it. But I'm assuming most of you, somewhere along the line, have seen the film Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And there is that whole sequence where they're down in the cave. And, oh no, they're outside of the cave. And there's the most dangerous rabbit you ever lay your eyes on. And they're just like, oh my God, are you kidding me? It's just a rabbit. Like, just go in and take care of the rabbit. And then the rabbit comes out and just mauls the hell out of everybody. And it was like, you should have taken that guy serious. This is literally the most dangerous rabbit in the world. Just because it's a furry, cuddly looking creature doesn't mean said creature is not going to potentially tear you a new one, as it were. And that kind of applies to today's story. So Patrolman Charles E. Vinson was called to the Yamhill Market, which I've heard references to the Yamhill Market in past videos I've done, and I'm assuming it was on Yamhill Street. Not too far from the waterfront, probably somewhere in the vicinity of Yamhill and 4th, or Yamhill and 3rd, Yamhill and 5th, maybe. I know I've looked it up once, but I don't remember exactly where it was. But Mr. Officer Vincent was called to this market. And this is what I love, because this is the kind of stuff nobody, I mean, maybe 1 in 1,000 might call the police, but this is the kind of stuff that, like, the police would get, this oddball stuff that the police would get called for, that I just feel like they would just never get called for these days. One of these kind of things where people would just kind of deal with it themselves. So the market had just brought in a truckload of new food, and apparently the truck had been infiltrated by some rabbits. So, instead of, grabbing a stick or something and being like, all right, come on, just get along, go on, rabbits, or You know, how the rabbits got there, who knows? I don't think these were, it's just so interesting to me to think there's just wild rabbits wandering the streets of downtown Portland back in the 20s, because that's what this seems like. It seems like these rabbits were drawn to the food in this truck the same way that like ants are drawn into your home today to pursue, you know, whatever sustenance they can gather. So just that thought alone is just, it's just intriguing. I mean, you try to think about it. Even though it's the old days of Portland, 1920s, just wild rabbits roaming through town. And now those wild rabbits have hopped into your truck. So I guess, I don't know, maybe they were scared. Maybe it made sense to call the police. And Patrolman Vincent was the first guy there. And as the article said, Vincent liked animals. Vincent was very fond of rabbits. They were cute and cuddly. You could cradle one like a little baby and they would just like, you know, move their nose. I don't know. I remember the day I found out I could do that. It was the greatest day of my life. It's when I found out I could move my nose without moving other parts of my face. Just like rabbit nose. Anyway, so Vincent arrives on the scene. He crouches down, looks through these crates of food. He's looking for rabbits. And as he's doing it, you know, he's leaning his face in because he's trying to look, you know, around the crates to see if any animals pop out. And he gets real close to a crate where there happened to be one particular bunny in. So the bunny sees this nose, this schnoz, as it were, approaching him. And, you know, I mean, I'm sure the rabbit saw the full face of the officer, but the bunny sees that thing coming and thinks, that looks like food. Maybe that's kind of tasty. And then, you know, as he leans in, Vincent sees the rabbit. You know, the rabbit's right there in front of him. And he's like, oh, you know, he smiled. It literally says in the article that he grinned, like, oh, look at the cute little rabbit. Oh, come here, little bunny. And the bunny went forward and went, took like 3 good bites into Officer Vincent's nose. And almost immediately Vincent was like freaked because he was thinking about rabies, because that was absolutely a thing. He thought maybe he was gonna get rabies from a wild animal. So they said, you know, the 3 bites, and he pulled back, and he didn't even finish investigating or handling the situation, actually getting rid of the rabbits. He took off running, and he ran to the nearest drugstore to get a bottle of iodine that he just put all over his nose where the rabbit had bit him, because he was worried, like, oh my God, I'm gonna get rabies from this wild, insane, crazed, bloodthirsty, man-eating rabbit. He's the most fiercest creature you ever laid eyes on. I think actually in the article I read, it did reference that it was almost, they put it in quotes, like ha ha ha, but it was like, it's a man-eating rabbit. So, you know, policeman's job is never easy. Even when you're dealing with little critters, seemingly minor events, you never know when you're gonna be running to a drugstore out of fear of having rabies. Imagine that emotional peak, going from, all right, I'm gonna run off a few wild rabbits, to, oh my God, I have rabies. That's an emotional roller coaster if I've ever seen one before. But I think he was probably okay. I don't know. I only saw the story as, you know, of Patrolman Vincent as it related to this particular story, so I don't know, maybe he got rabies later on. I don't know. He took iodine. It seems like everybody back then took iodine. Obviously, I'm not a medical expert. I don't really know what iodine is really used for medically. I've never like had a reason to look it up, but it just seems like people were put, like, all these old newspaper articles, if someone had a random injury, they were always putting iodine on it. That was just the cure-all. Arm fell off, just pour some iodine on that. Your teeth are getting crooked, just brush your teeth with some iodine. Don't do that. I'm not a medical professional. You probably don't want to listen to what I'm suggesting to you, but anyway, it was a funny story when all is said and done. And that's what I'm all about. So, Patrolman Vincent is probably okay. Wild rabbits are probably okay. They probably got fed a little bit. I mean, I don't know if another officer came to the scene afterwards to continue the work that Vincent did, or maybe Vincent came back after dousing his nose, or maybe he was just traumatized. Like, I don't ever want to see a rabbit again as long as I live. So I'm not really sure how the situation resolved itself. If they just had another officer go out there, or if the people working the Yamhill Market were just like, oh, for God's sake. All right, Dwayne, get the stick. We're gonna have to handle this ourselves. I assume it got resolved some way or another. They weren't just gonna let those rabbits eat all their food that literally they needed to sell. So anyway, that's the full story, and I'm sticking to it. So anyway, all that said, thank you for watching today. I hope you enjoyed this little rabbit-laced caper. And remember, as always, if you want to help my channel continue to grow and to blossom, remember to like, share, subscribe, hit up my Patreon. I don't know why I'm like, just, my channel's a banger. All of them are. But if you want to help me out on my Patreon and help make this life easier for me, the link is in the description with this video, as well as the links to my Instagram and Facebook pages, closely related to the content I'm producing, both on my This Day in History channel, as well as my primary channel, Steve the Amateur Historian. I'm posting these vlogs on both, so you can see them on either one. And all that said, watch out for the rabbits. And this has been Steve, and I'll see you tomorrow.